Well, it's great to be here. I'm Lauren Kunze from Pandorabots. We have actually been in business for 10 years, which is why I think we're one of the largest bot platforms in the world. We have about 250,000 registered developers. We add over 4,000 developers to the platform every month. And a lot of the times that's developers from big brands. And then we also work with a lot of big brands to build out more complicated chatbot applications. So just to get a read on the audience, who here is a developer? Developers? Very cool. Who here like works in a brand? Nobody. Yes. Is that Martin?
Yay! Hey, Lauren, how are you?
Hi, great to see you. Awesome. Okay, who's not a developer? What are you? Are you a writer? Conversation designer? Human? How many robots in the audience? Great. Okay. Excellent. So I would love for you guys, I don't want to talk a lot. I'd love to spend most of the time on questions for you guys and what you're interested in. I'm going to do a brief overview of the platform and kind of talk a little bit about our technology offering, just how it works. And then I'll hop into some case studies from some of the bigger brands we've worked with that are public, and sort of, you know, what's worked well and what has not worked. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, technology, man, this is awesome. So we basically provide a platform. It's free, where anyone can sign up and build a bot. I think the most important detail about the technology difference is that we're supporting an open standard scripting language called Artificial Intelligence Markup Language. It's an XML-based language, so it looks like this. If you hate tags, I'm very sorry.
Oh.
I know JSON's very popular. What we found is that this language, uh-oh, somebody hates tags, huh? Raise your hand if you hate tags. No? Oh, no, in the back. All right, you can leave. Yeah, so what we found is that this is actually very easy for anybody who knows HTML, a little bit of HTML to learn. So we've actually had a lot of success training writers and non-technical people on the platform. Usually takes about 4 days to get the fundamental concepts and 4 weeks of writing AML to be proficient. It's funny because, you know, this language originated back in 2002. So we're not the only platform that supports it. Sometimes it's obscured under a GUI, and anyone can pick it up because it is this open language. But back in 2002, this was kind of the easy way to build a bot, which is funny now because we have a lot of platforms that are sort of WYSIWYG just for marketers. And this is not. This is actually now, I think, probably one of the more complicated ways to build a bot. But it's got a lot of cool features, like it lets you keep context and, you know, learn about the user. So I have the classic little pizza bot over here. And we also, it supports, you know, more free form inputs, so we also support rich media. So you can see how all this is working over here and where we are in the code. So we also provide an easy way, kind of all the, I think, standard things to deploy your bots. I've got a pizza bot. Let's see where my pizza bot is. Yep, so this is my same little pizza bot. We provide an easy way to get a landing page like this and just drop in a chat widget here or on your website. Review chat logs over here. And there are some no-code ways to make updates if you just want to quickly add this. AML is a pattern matching system, so it's a rule-based system. We have a number of machine learning tools, but our philosophy at Pandorabots is that machine learning is really designed to help you optimize the system and make you write rules faster, but it's by no means a silver bullet. So I think, at this point, it's pretty well known that you can't just like take a massive data set and, put it in a machine learning blender and spit out a perfectly conversational chatbot. Natural language understanding is still a really hard, unsolved problem. And we believe actually that it's going to be a hybrid approach between rules and machine learning. So we're using some machine learning for triage on what logs are priority, where there wasn't an answer. If we have large data sets, we have machine learning tools that write rules faster or semi-automatically. And then we also have like a machine learning based segmenter for Asian languages. This platform, like AML, can be written in any language. Another cool thing about the platform, I think, is it's obviously not a black box system, so it's easy to debug and see what's going on in the code. And then you can download your bot files anytime. We also have open source interpreters, so if you want to run on-premise, the VP of engineering at FanDuel, which is a company in the UK, is like one of our biggest open source contributors. He has an awesome Python 3 AML interpreter. So it's really like you can get your hands dirty as a developer and go as deep as you want, or you can use the web service. So I am going to talk about some use cases that are working. These slides, I did a keynote at Mobile World Congress Americas, so I'm pulling some of those slides here. So we're basically hosting over 300,000 chatbots on the platform. And most of them are deployed on the web still. And most of them, unfortunately, are what we would call crap bots, or where somebody put in 5 minutes and didn't end up doing anything useful. So one thing we like to talk about a lot is just that building a good bot is a really hard thing that requires continuous care and feeding and optimization, and sort of looking at the data, running analytics, and making tweaks. So like you really need to think of your bot as a long-term project that you're working on every day. So the use cases that we've seen working most on the platform, marketing and advertising is actually our biggest revenue sector, and sort of most popular case today. And that kind of includes commerce. I mean, I think a lot of people would say, that they're using bots for every phase of the customer life cycle, and B2C communication. So sort of top of funnel, brand awareness and product discovery, which is marketing, to actually completing a transaction, customer service. And then we're also doing a lot of work in the Internet of Things realm in our services practice. So like talking cars, talking vending machines, which I'll get into in a second. And then entertainment has actually also been a huge vertical. And I think it's an underappreciated vertical right now, where like from a developer monetization perspective, that's where we've seen the most success in the past. So that's cool. One of our bots, so American Eagle Outfitters is a jeans brand here in the US. I'm not sure if it's big in the UK, but it's one of the biggest jeans brands here. And Facebook Messenger actually made this bot into a case study. So one feature of our language is that it's very flexible and extensible. So we're integrated with their product catalog via API. So we're basically giving people, a little gene quiz to find that perfect pair of jeans, and then we're using their search and filter APIs to display the results on Facebook Messenger and let people actually make a purchase. We actually 2 weeks ago just launched this gene and a bra bot for their bra brand bra brand, that's kind of hard to say, on their website, which is really cool because I think one thing that, you know, developers in the ecosystem complain about a lot is discovery, specifically on Facebook Messenger, which has been one of the big deployment channels. So we're really excited to get on their website and start seeing the actual power of the traffic on their website and how the bot increases conversions. We've only been live on the site 2 weeks, but it looks so far like the conversion rate is about double for people who interact with the bot versus people who don't in the A/B test, which is very cool. So these bots, like this is a very typical of our professional services engagements where we go very deep with the client over a number of years. So they've actually, I think, are about 1.5 years being live. We had some really great results with past campaigns we did, where I'm sure you guys have seen some of these stats where right now on messaging platforms, the click-through rates are really high, the open rates are really high, and that's why I think we're starting to see such verticalized applications when it comes to marketing and remarketing. You know, I think a lot of marketers are thinking of this as the next email marketing channel. Whether that's good or bad, we can debate later. This is actually probably, this is my favorite use case. Sorry if you guys don't speak Japanese. This is Yamato Transport, which is the biggest shipping company, door-to-door delivery in Japan. And this bot falls in the realm of customer service. But the reason that we think it works so well, so first of all, it's been live for about 2 years. So this is on Line Messenger. It's been live for about 2 years. We've been adding a new feature every month. It's doing about 70 million messages a day, which is super awesome, very high volume. It's got, you know, a lot of users, and it basically lets you schedule packages for redelivery if you're not home. So you get a text from the bot saying, hey, this is when your package is coming, and you can text back in natural language, oh, I'm not home, I need to reschedule. And that's actually resulted in millions of savings for this company because they're able to save on redelivery costs. The reason that I love this use case so much is like customer service, like everybody thinks that's sort of the holy grail and the obvious application for bots. But there are a couple of reasons why it doesn't work very well. One reason is that if somebody is already angry and they have a problem and they have a bad chatbot experience, they're just going to get more angry. And like people really like to feel like somebody made an exception for them. We call it the exception principle. So a human actually came in and said, I'm going to bend the rules for you because you had a bad experience. And you want that kind of emotional satisfaction there. And then the other reason anyone who works on customer service bots is that if something goes wrong, people tend to tell a very long story about all of the terrible things that happened to them, much of which is not relevant, you know. So it's like, oh, I missed my flight, and I was like having a fight with my mom while I was on the phone, and then this happened, and then I tweeted at you, and you didn't tweet back. And that's very difficult for the state of the art in chatbots to parse those multilingual inputs. So what we found, like, one, obviously customer service works well for like level 0 queries that you get all the time can be automated. And, you know, escalating to a human agent in the loop in the case where there's something that the bot doesn't know. But what I love about Yamato is that it's really proactive. So it's getting the customer basically an alert and interaction on the channel they use all proactively before they have a problem. And I think, like, as we're looking at what's been most successfully enabled, it's really these higher volume use cases where you can have constant customer contact, and the channel is just much more powerful. Already covered that. We also work very closely with Coca-Cola. We announced kind of talking vending machines where you can do mobile ordering. I think this is another use case that we're finding is very powerful, is anything that bridges online and offline. So another, like recently, like the first bot on Apple Business Chat just came out a week ago that's doing in-seat stadium ordering. I think anything that lets you kind of order ahead or order on a more convenient channel is also going to be very powerful. So I will stop there and would love to kick it to you guys for questions.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
How well do the chatbots react to emojis or animated GIFs when they're sent?
So emojis are, you simply write a rule for how you want it to respond to emojis. Sending a bot an image requires an image recognition API if you want to do something more intelligent than saying, oh, looks like you sent me a picture, but I can't see it because I'm software and I don't have eyeballs. So we actually have used third-party image recognition APIs. That's one of the third-party integrations we've played with. It's a company called Slice. We used it. It's live in the American Eagle Outfitters bot that I showed you. Actually, you can take a picture of any item of clothing, and it will look in their catalog for something that is similar and then display similar things, which is how the eBay shop bot works as well. So kind of like shoppable physical commerce. And then we've also found that people are shopping on Instagram a lot, so people will screenshot something that they like, and they can also send that to the bot. Unless you do that, it'll be very difficult. And we've actually, you know, it's kind of up to the developer to decide how you want to deal with an image or if you want to leave that on. Unfortunately, like a lot of the images that people do send through to the bots are like a little bit inappropriate, we've found. Yeah, it's not good. We actually had one innovation team in a brand who wanted to project like the logs onto the CIO's office. And we had to talk them out of it, and they didn't. They put it up for like 20 minutes, and then they quickly realized, yeah, it's just the internet, you know. It's not the best place in the world.
Hi, Lauren. 10 years is a long time in an eon probably in the chatbot platform space. How do you see it? How do you see it has changed, and how do you see that changing over the next few years?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I like to say that even though we're basically a decade old, we are a little bit like a startup in that we didn't start trying to make money until about 4 years ago. We grew out of an open source hobby project, which was the AML open standard. And we've always had like this free platform where anybody can sign up. So we didn't start trying to monetize the platform until about 4 years ago. But we have been through several different hype cycles in the space. We actually had a lot of developers who were able to build mobile applications and monetize those applications. You know, shortly after Siri came out, you know, we had a team that was actually acquired by Google that works on Google Assistant now for their personal assistant. And there was also kind of a hype cycle in the smarter child active buddy era when AOL Instant Messenger was big. So I think this time, third time's a charm. I think it's real. The market is really here. We've kind of been through the peak of inflated expectations or in the trough of disillusionment or despair where the real work is getting done. I think I predicted in 2016 that this year, 2018, like most major Fortune 1000 companies would have bots under development or be launching bots. And, you know, we have conversations with a lot of those companies regularly, and that seems to be the case. So brands and businesses have definitely adopted this as like the future of how they're going to interact with consumers. Consumers are a bit behind. I think what's interesting, what catalyzed the hype cycle that we're in is actually not a technology breakthrough. Like that's the normal catalyst for a hype cycle. But in this case, it was actually a massive shift in consumer behavior to messaging. So the message is explosive. You know, I've just been looking at the numbers for RCS, which is the standard that's going to replace SMS. And Google and GSMA are predicting that there's going to be 4.4 billion RCS-enabled phones by 2020. You know, even though SMS as a channel has a lot of problems, that's still number one in terms of how we message. but 2.6 billion people have a different messaging app installed, whether it's WhatsApp or WeChat or Facebook Messenger, and that's going to be 3.6 billion, I think, within the next 2 years. So the way that we're communicating is what's really been the driver here, not a natural language understanding breakthrough, which we all know is an unsolved problem, because if it was solved, our bots would be a lot smarter. And I honestly can't say if the solution, like, to natural language understanding is 5 years out or 10 years out, or never going to happen, or if it does happen, then the singularity is upon us and we should all panic and move to Mars and let the bots kill us. But I do think there's a long way to go, because we don't really understand how language works in the human brain from a neuroscience level. So, like, right now, I think the current state of the art in thought leadership is that rules, like hybrid rules in machine learning systems, like, work best in production. Domain-specific solutions work, but until this is really solved, we're not going to be having these fluid conversations with machines about anything under the sun.
Hi, Lauren. A lot of the proponents of statistical dialogue management, so kind of the non-rules-based kind of systems, where it's kind of driven by ML or whatever, one of their big arguments for that is that it helps manage complexity and helps kind of reduce the complexity of rules clashing with each other. What is your experience with kind of some of the more complex bots? I mean, I know that Pandora hosts Mitsuku, who Steve has spoken at this meetup in the past. Whether you kind of have found a way to make rules scale.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, rules and machine learning both have drawbacks. Rules are cumbersome to write, difficult to scale, and those are the big drawbacks, but they work every time. Machine learning is a black box. It's only effective if you have a ton of data, and the data is organized and labeled appropriately, and sometimes you might just get the wrong answer and you don't know why. So I think that's why people are saying, like, both of these broken approaches work sort of together and can provide the best results. Like, my favorite quote recently, there was a developer complaining in a forum, why does dialogue flow work better when rules mode is on? So it really depends, like, at the end of the day, it depends on how much data you have. If you have a lot of data, like, a machine learning approach is going to be more effective. But Mitsuku is obviously a rule-based system, so I think that debunks one of the common critiques, which is that you can't build a robust conversational system using only rules. Yamato Transport is a super complicated bot. It's actually like a networked collection of about 60 bots that are talking to each other on a network. There's an operator bot that routes traffic on the network. There's a DNS namespace bot that knows what all of the different bots can do. One of them knows about shipping schedules, and one of them's holding the user's personal details. So that's really, really complicated, but it's all rule-based. And I think that the reason that rules actually end up working if you don't have a lot of data is because you can add them over time. The scaling thing is an issue, right? Like, in the state of the art today, you need a human. Like, the Yamato Transport bot has a whole team of people who are constantly reviewing and on a weekly, if not daily basis, making updates to the bot as new data enters the system. But what we've seen is after about 3 months, you tend to hit 80% automation on the questions that you're seeing all the time. So I think, like, there's a bit of a mindset adjustment that is needed in the current state of the art, which is that most of the work in bot development happens after launch. And you really need to be in the process and workflow of the knowledge expert who's making updates on a regular basis. Kind of trying to do with the interface too, like, where we're pushing it is understanding, like, this is something that you should be logging into every day, not WYSIWYGing something together in 5 minutes and putting it out there and, like, oh yay, we have a business result. So hopefully that answers it. Wish I had a perfect answer for you about everything working perfectly, but that's not where we are.
Still a great answer, thank you. I think that's it then. Thank you so
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Sorry I can't hang out. I have a plane to catch. My funny friend is eloping on a Tuesday. Very, very rude. But it's been so great being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Great, and people can reach you on
sorry about the slides issues. And my info. Oh, we're freezing. If anybody has any follow-up questions later, just find me on Twitter, email, LinkedIn. Happy to chat anytime.
Great, okay. So yes, you can tweet Lauren.